Hello and welcome to Boozy and the Beast, How to Drink Better. Today we're dealing with wines for hipsters and hippies, the natural wine.
Hey man, is this the summer of love? I've heard the Grateful Dead are gonna be here.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I can share some sommelier love, and here's a glass of Grateful Red.
Cool, that's gonna go well with my mushrooms.
Actually, no, mushrooms are notoriously tricky to pair because of their flavours of umami.
So Libby, I've been thinking it's going to be really difficult to stay in character for the entirety of this episode.
So I'm just going to crack straight on. Let's talk about natural wine. What is it?
A great question. There's actually no legal definition for natural wine, but what we tend to think of it as is a hand-picked or hand-harvested wine, something that's come generally from an organic or biodynamic or sustainable vineyard. It's one that's been fermented with wild or native yeasts rather than having anything added to it. In fact, generally they have no additives and no or very little sulfites. They're generally from smaller producers and they sort of let the wine do its own thing. So it's not at all standardized. Every wine will be rather individual.
So how does this affect the wine itself?
Okay, well this is quite exciting because I don't drink a lot of natural wine and I'm very interested by this. So as you can see, the wine itself is cloudy in appearance. That's because the wine has not been fined or filtered.
Hang on a second, is that? Oh, it's white. Everything looks rosé tinted in these glasses.
Oh my God. Anyway, generally the appearance will be cloudy because there'll be sediment within the wine because it hasn't been fined or filtered. If you don't like sediment in your wine, that's absolutely fine. Just leave it to settle for a while before pouring.
Well, that sounds a bit different. What about the taste?
I'm glad you asked. Let's try it. I'm going to ask you to open this because I'm not used to beer bottles.
Cool. Nor am I.
Oh, there's plastic around it.
It's got the safety on.
Well, that looked perfectly natural.
Right, okay, what were we talking about 5 minutes ago? So, how does all of this natural stuff affect the taste?
Well, two words for you really. It'll be fizz and funk. So I'm just going to pour this. Generally, when a wine is fermented, it creates CO2, so some sort of fizziness. Conventional wines get rid of this because they see it as a fault and not desirable, whereas most natural wines will have a little bit of fizz. Now this is obviously very fizzy because this particular one is meant to be a fizzy wine. Should you have a little sip?
Yeah. Bom chicka wop wow. And that's the funk you were talking about, Libby.
Absolutely. So basically, you may get the funkiest. There's a whole spectrum of natural wine out there, from the very wine-like to those that really taste more like cider or even kombucha. And that funkiness, do you get that?
I am definitely getting that. It's strange. It doesn't really taste like wine. It tastes like a hybrid of everything you've mentioned, in fact.
Well,
I'd drink it.
Yeah, I drink it. You heard it here first. High praise for natural wine.
Stamp of approval.
Basically, the reason you've got that funk is because these wines are fermented for longer because they don't add the chemicals that conventional wines do to speed up the wine fermenting process.
So recently I've been perusing my favourite aisle in the supermarket and I've seen quite a lot of mysterious labels on the bottles, one of them being organic wine. I was wondering what is meant when we see organic wine on a bottle.
Okay, so an organic or a biodynamic wine, they're certified by a third party. And the organic wine means that they don't use any chemicals in their vineyards. They also probably don't add any sulfites or chemicals to their actual wine itself.
So LSD free.
LSD free. However, it doesn't mean there are no additives because they still may add things like animal enzymes or egg whites in the finding and filtering process, so don't confuse them with vegan wines.
So basically everything that's added is natural, nothing artificial added to the wines. And I've also seen on labels some wines marked as biodynamic wines. I was wondering what that meant.
This is a bit rarer, but this is a whole spiritual, ethical, ecological system of winemaking. It's basically the idea that the wine is part of an ecosystem, so everything's in balance, and it has some potentially hippie qualities. They have their own calendar, they do their harvesting and planting according to phases of the moon and the stars. I'm sorry if I'm explaining this in a slightly too hippie way. They even do things like they bury cow horns into the vineyard. I mean, it's a whole belief system that goes into winemaking that they believe provides a balanced ecosystem for the wine.
It's a typical Gemini way of explaining it, to be honest, though.
What star sign are you?
I'm Pyrex. I'm a test tube baby. So I want to backpedal a little bit. You mentioned vegan wines earlier. This is something which has often perplexed me when I've seen it on a bottle. Surely grapes are grown on vines, which are plants. So isn't all wine vegan?
You are completely correct about the grapes being grown on vines, which are plants. However, during the winemaking process, various other agents have been traditionally used and allowed as fining and filtering, such as egg whites, such as animal enzymes. And because of that, some wines are not vegetarian and some wines are not vegan. If you are a vegan or a vegetarian, it's worth either looking for a symbol on the wine or that it states it, or Googling it. Love a bit of Google on this show.
Under the table.
Under the table. But yes, have a Google and just check, because not all wines are. Okay, so come on, Robin. We've got our organic, natural wine here, the cloudiness, the sediment, the deliberate fizz, it is a sparkling wine, versus the conventional claret. Which one do you prefer?
Well, you know I like my red wine, but you know, Libby, I would drink this. For me, this says hot summer's day, festival. It would replace a cider or a perry, which can often get a bit too sweet after a while. And this is quite a drinkable wine, and I think at 11.5%, after a few pints of this stuff, it would make it quite a memorable or not particularly memorable festival, depending on how you look at it.
Well, cheers. Everything has its place.
Peace.